Is the church prayer meeting dead? Do we even need to pray together as a group, or are our individual prayers enough? Find out in this video. This is the third video in our mini-series on prayer with Mike Betts, and if you haven't watched the first two, take a moment to click on the card above to catch up. Mike recently wrote a book on prayer, and if you are interested in checking it out, I've provided a link in the description. In that book, he quoted the late Eugene Peterson, the man behind the Message Bible. Dr. Peterson said this: "In the long history of Christian spirituality, community prayer is more important than individual prayer." I asked Mike to unpack this a bit for us.
Well, the premise of the book, first of all, is on corporate prayer. I think there are many books on our personal walk with God and praying, how to have a good prayer life, and many of them are magnificent. I've learned so much from them. What I became convinced of, really from just reading one verse, I read 2 Corinthians 1:11. It was as if the Lord spoke really strongly to me, where it says, "You also must help us by prayer, so that many will give thanks for the blessing granted us in answer to the prayers of many." And when I read that, I suddenly realized Paul, when he was up against it, and you look at what his response was, and I always think when people are up against something, you look at where's their first recall. Mm-hmm. He didn't ask for backup, he didn't ask for strategy, he didn't say I'm going to come home for a sabbatical, he didn't say send more reinforcements or give me any money or can you help me out here. He said, I want you collectively, he wrote to the whole church, I want you, the prayers of many, to be leveraged on my behalf, because the blessing and the answer is going to come in answer to the prayers of many. So I think there is a strategic understanding Paul had that at times the sheer weight of numbers involved in praying shift things in a way that sometimes individual prayer won't. Now, there are times when Paul refers to individual people like Epaphras, who he says wrestles in prayer with you, and there are individuals who have got a grace on them to pray, as it were, over and above what would be perhaps normal grace that most of us have. But they're named, people like Epaphras, he had a reputation for it, so they're few and far between. Whereas what Paul is saying is there's a collectivity about prayer that is incredibly powerful. And as I became more and more convinced of this, and I read some of Jonathan Edwards' works, and I looked at William Carey, how they started up concerts of prayer, again, of many thousands of people, precisely on this principle that corporate prayer is a strong leveraging tool to bring about kingdom expansion. I realized that actually the subject of corporate prayer, and what I might say in the West particularly, is the demise of the local church prayer meeting, that something needs to be done about that. So in my own small way, within my own little pool of influence, I thought, well, I'll just say what I think Scripture's saying. And the Peterson quote, I think, is fascinating because, again, I remember talking to Terry Virgo about this, having a discussion about prayer, and he made the observation that 90% of the teaching in the New Testament to do with prayer, the application is in the corporate context. It is not about me and Jesus and my own personal prayer life. It's to do with when you pray, and it's collective. And so I think there's something we've got to regain that culturally in the West, we're obviously very individualized societies. So we apply everything to the individual. I think prayer, we've scored a few own goals with that because we've made it far too individual in nature when the majority of the New Testament emphasis, I believe, is on the corporate dynamics of prayer. I'm not decrying a personal quiet time or whatever. I never have understood that phrase, but you know what I mean. A time with God. I'm not decrying that. We need a walk with God. Of course we do. But if that's all we have, we're missing the engine under the bonnet.
I recently read an article about a man who lived in a fairly remote village in eastern India. There was no source of water except a few small wells, which was enough to drink but not to irrigate crops. The man in the story always reckoned that if he could dig a canal to redirect water from the streams in the hills, there would be enough water to grow vegetables and wheat, making the village self-sufficient. So he decided to dig it. The problem was, everyone thought he was mad. Nobody helped him. His wife starved him in the hopes he would come to his senses. His sons arranged and had an exorcism for him, but he plugged on. It took 30 years to dig 3 kilometers of canal. Because of his efforts, though, this year, the village was able to grow wheat for the very first time. And as I read this article, the thought crossed my mind, what if the whole village had turned out to dig with him? Instead of 30 years, it would probably have taken about 30 days. For 30 years, this village struggled when they didn't have to, if they had worked together. Often we look at prayer as a solo activity, but just imagine with me what would happen if we were able to take on the responsibility of praying together corporately rather than leaving it to a few gifted individuals. How much more would we accomplish? How many more people could we reach with the hope that is Jesus? How much struggle could we avoid as churches? How much more effective would the church be? I hope this little video has encouraged you to begin to get a vision for corporate prayer. But what if you don't know where to start? Why not click the link below and buy a copy of Mike's book? You can also visit prayersofmany.org and check out when the next Enough Prayer concert is taking place and check it out for yourself. Rather than sitting back wondering why the church isn't moving forward, let's get down in the ditch and start shoveling together. Well, that's all for this week. And I don't know about you, but I was inspired by this. Maybe you were too. And if you felt this content was valuable, why not click the like button or leave a comment? And if you want to make sure you know the next time we put out content, please click the subscribe button. And make sure you hit that little bell for the notifications, then you'll know when it comes out. Until next time, keep looking upwards, keep moving onwards, and I will see you in the next video.